here with Mr. Thurgood Marshall, a lawyer in the Brown versus the Board of Education cases. So, Mr. Marshall, what are some of your arguments for these cases?
Well, in Plessy v. Ferguson, the Supreme Court had misinterpreted the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Equal protection of laws did not allow for racial segregation. Also, the 14th Amendment allowed the government to prohibit any discriminatory state-based action on race, including segregation in public schools. The 14th Amendment did not specify whether the states would be allowed to establish segregated education. Finally, psychological testing demonstrated the harmful effects of segregation on the minds of African American children.
How did the defense counter these points?
They countered these points by saying that segregation didn't harm African Americans. The Constitution didn't say that all African Americans had to go to the same school. Racial segregation was a regional custom, and whites were making an effort to equalize the educational system.
And last question, what compelled you to take this case?
I wanted to take this case because I felt that what was happening was unfair and that everyone deserves the equal education they need. I felt it was necessary to make a change for the greater good.
Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you, Mr. Thurgood Marshall.
Oliver Brown, time period 2 years after decision.
Hello, sir. Can you please give us a brief history of who you are?
Hello, my name is Oliver Brown. I fought for educational equality in the Supreme Court between African American and white schools. I started this because my daughter had to walk 21 miles to get back to the black school only school. I managed to win this case and create educational equality.
Now, 2 years after the case, how has it impacted your community and the country?
This has made my daughter's life so much easier. The facilities are so much newer and nicer. They are actually equal to the white facilities. This has helped the African American community as a whole by giving black children the opportunity to learn better and equal to their white counterparts.
How is 2 years ago different from today?
The difference from today, from 2 years ago, is wonderful. Today, the African American community feels that they have gained more respect in education than 2 years ago. I feel the court's decision has made a big impact on the community.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for an interview with Mr. John W. Davis, the lead defense attorney in the Brown versus the Board of Education case.
Thank you for being here today, Mr. Davis.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So could you give us a brief history of who you are?
I was in the Army and was awarded a Purple Heart, Bronze Star, and Silver Star. I was elected mayor of McCluskey, North Dakota in 1946, serving until 1952.
What were your main defending arguments in the trial?
That the Constitution did not require white and African American children to attend the same schools, segregation was not harmful to the black people, and whites were making a good faith effort to equalize the two educational systems. But because black children were still living with the effects of slavery, it would take some more time before they were able to compete with white children in the same classroom.
Did the law require desegregation?
Of course not. The government provided both of our schools with what they needed. African Americans shouldn't get as much though. There are more students in the white schools, so we need more things. Social separation of blacks and whites was a racial custom, was a regional custom. The state should be left free to regulate their own social affairs. If African Americans didn't like how they were being treated, why don't they move somewhere else?
Do you think that the statement that the African Americans were affected by segregation is true?
White people are affected too, so why is it such a big deal that the Negroes are affected? If anything, they got their own fountains and bathrooms. We got our things and they got theirs. They are equal but separated. What's the difference if we share something?
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for letting us ask you some important questions.
Thank you for watching. Join us next time as we interview more important figures in our history.
What is your name and your occupation?
Well, my name is Oliver Brown. I'm a reverend in Topeka, Kansas.
Can you tell us a little bit about the build-up to the Brown versus Board of Education case?
I, along with 12 other parents, went straight to the NAACP because my daughter was not admitted to an all-white school.
We have heard that there are many other similar cases of this sort. Why is this one under your name?
Well, I was the only man in the group of parents, so they all decided to call it Brown versus the Board of Education.
What happened in this case that captured national attention?
Well, this case was for civil rights, which was very interesting and a great controversial topic at the time because many African Americans thought that this treatment was very biased. White people thought that this was the way it should be.
Tell us some of the facts of the case.
The case originated in Topeka, Kansas, around an all-white school and an all-black school, and the treatment of African Americans. My daughter was denied entrance into the all-white school, which we did not take very well. We sued Sumner Elementary, and the case eventually made its way up to the Supreme Court.
What was the NAACP?
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People was started in January of 1909. The association had hundreds of white and African American clients in varying cases.
What was your motivation for crossing over racial barriers?
We felt that both whites and blacks should be treated equally, and we wanted our daughter to have a good education. The racial barriers need to be challenged as
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm here with Earl Warren, Supreme Court Chief Justice. What is your opinion on white children and colored children attending the same school?
Well, education is the most important function that a child can get. I personally think that it is wrong to deprive any child of education, despite their race. The majority of the Supreme Court agreed with me on that. When I thought of the little innocent children who were torn from school friends and congenial surroundings, I was concise, stricken.
How is your decision on this case being enforced?
Well, many people agreed with our decision of declaring segregation unconstitutional. They must obey the law while enforcing it. In the end, life and liberty can be as much as endangered from illegal methods used to convict those thought to be criminals as from those criminals actually themselves.
Why should everybody be equal? They were never equal before.
I believe the preservation of our civil liberties to be the most fundamental and important of our governmental problems, because it has always been with us and always will be with us. And if we ever permit those liberties to be destroyed, there will be nothing left in our system worthy of preservation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warren. You have given us great perspective of the Brown versus Board of Education case to court. Thanks.